Hi, welcome to the comic panel. It's a holiday edition for the month of December starts up. And this year, the miniseries that DC put out, Crisis on Infinite Earth, if you're a comic book fan, you probably came across the graphic novels or the original issues, but it turned 30 years old this year.
Wow.
Can't believe it's been that long ago.
Yes.
So, do you want to explain to people explain a little bit of what Crisis on Infinite Earth is for the people that never read it?
Basically, it's getting the DC characters in line with each other. There was mass confusion because the backgrounds of all the characters were not in check. Writers were sitting there saying, well, I'm going to use Robin of Earth 2 for this script. And they're like, no, he's dead. You can't use him. And they're like, no, he's not. He never died. And even parts where Superman, was technically the only survivor of Krypton. Yet we have Krypto, Supergirl, Kandor. We have
the
all
whole
these,
city of Kandor.
right?
Yeah.
So he's not the sole survivor. Batman, who was a hero of World War II, is now in the 1980s, still young. Robin is still young in high school. How do we start getting all these story plots and make for a better storyline to go forward with? And that's what they decided to
Without
do.
losing things from the past, but being able to have a future with continuity and comics and stuff.
Exactly. And that's where it all started.
All right, so what is the basic premise of the story then?
Well, what's going to happen is there's going to be
Well, there's multiple Earths first.
Right. There's multiple Earths, and in the final end, just to get to the basic, we're going to combine all the Earths and take certain characters from each one that are relevant and make them into one new world, and that's it. They will all coexist at the same time on this Earth. They're not going to be in multiple universes. That's it. So to accomplish this, they created the Monitor and then the Anti-Monitor. And these two characters that they created were going to start the idea of where the Anti-Monitor was going to destroy them all, where the Anti-Monitor was going to look to try to save as many as he can from his evil clutches.
Now, Grogan, you were telling me one time off camera that with this story event, this isn't just a 12-issue miniseries that we're talking about. This was one of the first large crossovers that crossed over, and it just touched just about every DC title.
Yes.
In the process. Now, in this storyline that Marv Wolfman wrote, there's some significant death issues of certain characters. Did you want to talk about why? This when we were talking about it, you were telling me that if you weren't a read, like for example, The Flash, the classic cover of The Flash being dead, or Supergirl with Superman holding her, you didn't have to read Superman or Flash if you didn't like Flash for those key moments.
Right.
Do you
it
want
was
to
all in
tell
one.
the audience a little bit about that from what you told me, which I thought was an interesting point?
Yeah, I remember this because what happened was, if you were a Flash-only person, you had to not just read Flash. You had to buy Crisis because they were killing him off in Crisis, and there was a big fight in DC because the people who had Flash, they go, he dies in our issue. And they're like, no, because not everybody reads Flash. They're reading Crisis. They're not reading Flash. And it was a big fight, but DC stuck to its guns, and it was the best move they made because they killed him off in Crisis, which if you were reading it, then you got to see how he died. In the Flash storyline, you heard about it. And same thing with Supergirl. I mean, and those were two significant deaths. Even though there was a lot of people that died, a lot of major characters they got rid of.
Died and changed and everything else. Yeah.
Died, and then they like Hawk and Dove. They killed the original Hawk and Dove, and then they brought it back, and they gave the Dove was a girl character now. But one big thing of the issue number 1 was Blue Beetle 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
He makes his first appearance here. Huge, because he was part of Carlton Comics.
Or Charlton. So it depends,
Carlton.
yeah.
And it was a dying press, and they bought the rights to their character. And if you get Crisis number 1, you get his first appearance of Blue Beetle 2, which is going to be coming a movie really soon.
First appearance in the DC universe.
Continuity. Yep.
Yeah.
I really like the way they kept all those landmark events in the in the miniseries, because that way, if you're limited on money, you don't have to go around and get all these certain things. But if you like that character, you can keep that character just follow on that title,
Well,
and
yeah.
everything is there. I really thought that was a first-class way of doing it.
Yes and no, but the one thing that they didn't do was they should say they did do, they wanted to make money, so they would put those Crisis tie-ins on the comic, where you'd be reading the comic, and the only tie-in would be the crackle in the sky that meant that the Earth was dying.
Yeah, or they
Yeah.
mentioned
They mentioned,
one
oh, they
word,
did that, and that's
you know.
it, and that was
Yeah.
the tie-in, and that was a cheap plug-in
Yeah.
because you bought the book, like, oh, I gotta have it, so they did give it
Well, that
to
was
us,
a little bit of
Yeah.
an experiment there too.
and they got yelled at for that by the fan base.
Well, yeah. But I mean, this was a time when the comic industry was really changing. It was going to a direct market, and this was kind of the first experiment to do not just a crossover, but to start off with a number one. Up until that point, a lot of publishers in comics believed that fans would not buy something that was a number one or the very beginning of something. They wanted to see a comic or a magazine that had a higher number. This is an established character with a storyline. That's what I want. Crisis was one of the first comics to really say, we can sell a number one, and we can do it in a miniseries that involves everybody. Every character you could probably imagine in the DC universe. This was a way for them to touch on all that and give it to the direct market instead of just putting it out there in newsstands where, 50-50
Right.
chance if somebody's going to buy it or not. At a direct market, pretty much everybody that's walking through the door is already a comic fan. So, they're interested in what you have. Before that, it could be a grocery
hit and
store,
miss,
the mom and pop store in the corner. You could buy a comic book anywhere. It was mass distribution, and they were just making millions and millions of issues, and a lot would be sent back.
Yep.
Actual copies would be sent back that were not sold. Direct market, you can't do that. So it was a much more direct tap into the audience, and because you already have that audience that's already interested in these characters and is already vested in this universe, it's easier to sell to somebody like that than just somebody who's walking through a store and says, oh, here's a spinner rack with comics.
Here's
My
Supergirl
nephew likes
dead.
comics, so I'll pick one out for him. And, you already had the people there that were already interested in and were willing to spend money. So it was a good experiment for them, and it was also a way to gauge what kind of
Right.
money they could actually make. Could they do a giant crossover and redefine an entire universe to be able to move forward in this new world of direct marketing and be successful at it? And they were.
And the answer was
And
yes.
The answer was yes. People
then they
liked
kept
it.
doing it.
They liked the idea that even if they didn't like a lot of what Crisis did, they liked the idea that publishers were putting this much energy and thought into a comic book to say, hey, yeah, we're going to try to straighten this all out. We're going to really put some time and money into this. And it was like, we care. Okay, we've heard you. We know there's problems. Let's do this.
It's not like I agree with you on everything except part where they say, okay, we care. They had to do it because it was their death at this point if they didn't do something to fix what was
To some
going
degree,
on.
yeah.
I mean, you had Catwoman on Earth 2 who had a daughter that becomes a huntress. And
Well, they
she's
had to
married
abandon.
Batman.
They had to come up with some
Right,
singularity.
you had to, and that's because, well, of course, after 50 years of writing since the 1930s, they've created so many different vast things that okay, we never really wrote down who was really part of this world or who was really part of that world. So this was, not just a gift for us in saying that they cared. They were like, we have to
Yeah.
do something, and one of the coolest things out of this was the Anti-Monitor. Right now in DC, he's a major player. He is doing some major things right now with the Justice League. In fact, we find out now he is the director. Okay, spoiler alert. He's the person who created the chair that
Mobius chair.
Metron sits on
Mobius chair.
because we just find out what's his name. Anti-Monitor's name is Mobius.
Oh, Mobius, yeah.
Yeah, he created the chair. We just found that out because the greatest writer in the world, Jeff Johns, said it so.
I wasn't going to say that.
Because you're wrong, just like the Batman Superman stuff.
Yeah, right.
So now you're seeing a thing created back in 1985. Its vast touch is everywhere now. So that and then the good thing is, it kept continuity going. But then just what? When did 52 come out? when
What,
they
the first run?
when they just destroyed, they blew up the worlds again. Now we have all these universes.
When they
About 2 years ago? Was it about 2?
Yeah.
So now we're back to having multiple Earths.
I have no problem with people having multiple universes and multiple Earths, but the biggest thing is consistency and continuity.
Right.
And what I don't understand is back in the day of the Marvel bullpen, 10 guys putting out, or however many guys it was, putting out all these titles. And if you look at a comic book now, you got editor, editor-in-chief, senior editor,
Yeah.
all these different
Chief
editors.
creative officer.
You think someone could just sit there and just
Yeah.
map out everything and say, you can use this character, you can't, you got to wait till this storyline's over. Because I don't know, it was an issue of Wizard. One of the things they were comparing the DC universe against the Marvel universe. And one of the things that people liked, which was a strong selling point for Marvel, when they were coming up the ranks and starting to, get on par with DC and surpassing them, was continuity and their characters.
But they had it easy because
They
their
were
characters
newer.
weren't as
And they were
exactly. They were
newer,
newer.
yeah.
They weren't
They
as
were
old.
newer.
And one thing it's always been mentioned is Marvel uses New York City, Chicago, California.
That
not
was the other
made
thing
up
they
things.
mentioned that as
Yeah.
well.
And that's huge. I mean,
It was an interesting article.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know
Sounds
the
good.
issue. I wish I knew the issue. I read it, when I was younger, but if I could find it, I'll definitely bring it
Yeah.
in.
In fact, if
If you guys know the issue, send it, email us, and let us know, because I'd like to
because he'd like to know.
find it
But
again.
that's the thing I wish DC would do is use real world areas. Not make
They
up-
do to
they're
some
starting
degree.
to
I
a
mean,
little bit more.
They do.
I mean, you referenced
They have
Gotham City's still Gotham
yeah,
City.
Yeah, they still have their big cities, but
Coast City?
I mean, Coast
But
Star
what-
City.
Well,
Coast
what-
City.
what
Well, I
have
guess
they-
Coast was done.
What have they used that is currently a place in the United States? I don't think they've used any, as far as I know.
I thought they used Washington and New York.
Oh
a
yeah, they
couple
use
times.
Washington,
The big
Chicago.
cities, yeah.
In Crisis, when Supergirl dies and Batgirl gets up, that's in Chicago, and
But do they say it's Chicago?
absolutely.
Okay, it's about time then. Okay.
Yeah. Well, it was 1985.
Hey,
I've
we
been
learn something
educated.
new all the time.
I've been educated. But
I mean, they do.
But I read this
they're-
in 1985.
they're-
So
Their big cities are obviously fantasy cities: Metropolis, Gotham, Star City, things like that.
Right.
But they definitely use. It's just, I don't know.
actually, San Diego, if you remember with Aquaman, when it got submerged for a while in the story,
Yeah.
it became
Yep.
Sub Diego.
Sub Diego, yeah.
So yeah, they did a little bit, but the great thing is it helped define all the universes into one nice subcompact little story, so that nobody can, get mixed up anymore. You weren't sure if Uncle Sam was
Except 30 years later.
right now. We're back.
we
to
have the new
52s.
52.
Well, that was the thing too. They had Elseworlds to deal with. They could do that
Yeah.
as a. As
Well,
a
that was
field.
all part of their worlds. I mean, when they first did Crisis, we were only aware of like 3 or 4 Earths.
right.
You know what I mean? Then when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths, then all of a sudden we could have all those Elseworlds, those imaginary stories as they were called then.
Right.
We could tap into all those things too. So.
And the good thing is they brought Bizarro World back, which to me is a definite key. You need Bizarro
yeah.
World. I love that whole idea.
And for those people that aren't really into a lot of the older issues, well, we gave you enough reasons why you should
Yes.
definitely check out this issue. And you guys mentioned some other characters, and another character they introduced into this is the new Dr. Light, the female Dr.
Oh, yeah,
Light.
female
So
Dr. Light,
for
yeah.
those of you who are fans of the Flash television show, there's
She's on
another reason for you to check out
it
the
out,
book
yeah.
to see the original
Yeah, in the
appearance of
Flash
the
television show, they're
female
starting to
Dr.
tap into
Flash.
the different worlds a little
Yep.
bit. Hopefully, they won't do a whole bunch of Crisis things. I think that's a little too big for a television show,
Right
personally. But it's neat that they are at least acknowledging it. And I don't know. I'm a Golden Age Flash fan, so
It's pretty cool
Yeah.
to see him on there. I'm
Yeah.
wondering what other characters are going to introduce. And little trivia fact, I don't know if you know this, but if you watch the TV show, one of the supervising producers, I
Johns.
think, yep,
Of course I did. It's a silly question. Wow, that's the first name I see up there. I'm like, Jeff Johns. No wonder this show rocks. Jeff Johns is part of it. He touches it. Everything he touches is gold. So those are the reasons why we think you should check it out. It's a great storyline from 1985, 12-issue run. The Flash dies on it. Supergirl dies in it. Bunch
Wonder
of
Woman
other
dies
heroes.
in it.
Yep.
Wonder Woman from Earth 1, or no, Earth 2.
The one that was made out of clay?
No.
No. See? Yeah.
Aqua Girl dies.
Aqua Girl dies.
There's a
yeah.
whole list of them
There's
on
a-
the internet.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a
seriously,
lot of people
when
that
all
die.
the
There's
when all the
too
Earths
many
go,
to,
there's
too many to
too many
actually
heroes to
mention.
go.
And the
But,
creative team is Marv Wolfman and George Perez.
George
Both of them are
Perez,
also
yeah.
guys, awesome guys.
Oh,
Yeah,
Met them once.
fantastic stuff. Great art.
Great story.
Great story. Everything. Check it out.
but if you have any comments, leave them in the box below.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
I,
Like us on
like us
Facebook.
on Facebook.
Like us on Facebook too. Thanks for watching.
Thanks. We'll see you later.